Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Moving into the Future. Today, I'm joined by Rakesh Shah, who is Director of Construction at Moser Associates. I've known Rakesh for about a year now, and this podcast has been well overdue. I'm excited to talk to him today. Yeah.
Thanks for having me with you. I really appreciate it.
No, it's my pleasure, Rakesh. How you doing today? Good?
I'm doing awesome. Beautiful day with little wind, but not too cold. So I'm happy. And it's Thursday. One more day on a Friday, you know.
That's it.
Yeah.
As far as
definitely helps.
As far as weather goes in New York City in January, this is pretty
lucked
good.
Out so far. I mean, not a bad winter yet.
Exactly. I know. And today we are in the Moser office. Rakesh was nice enough to host us today. And I mentioned I've known him for about a year now. You know, he's somebody who's really inspired me, and his story is a story of, you know, overcoming obstacles and perseverance, and a reminder that success does not come overnight. It takes time.
Absolutely true. Yeah.
It takes time, and it takes, you know, patience and fortitude in order to get over certain challenges and things like that. So, you know, Rakesh, why don't you tell us your story about how you wound up in construction? You spent time in Kenya.
Sure.
Please enlighten our listeners.
My goodness, goes way back. I grew up in India. I was born and I went to college in India. I lost my dad when I was about 14. So it's been tough life to go through all that situation, go through the college, working part-time and surviving back home there. Wasn't an easy path. But a great thing happened in my life. I got an opportunity to go work in Kenya, Nairobi. Nairobi, Kenya is like East Africa, like nobody wants to go work there. A lot of people from India back in those days will go to Dubai or Iraq and Iran and go do the construction. But I'm like, yeah, I'll take the challenge and I'll go work there. I spent about 3.5 years there. Was a great life, except the safety of life was not there. But construction was something very similar to India. And one thing I gained out of Kenya was my language barrier. I grew up speaking Indian language. English was my third or fourth language, I would call it. You know, sometimes I make fun of people, like when I make a mistake, I'm like, English is my fourth language. I know it. I hate it, but it is what it is, you know. But it definitely helped me going to Kenya, dealing with a lot of British people in Kenya. It still run by British people, and a lot of great companies there. It was a great career start for me. And during that period, I met my wife. We are married 30 years now. Back in 1992, I met her in India, and we got married, and I got an opportunity to come to USA. As far as the construction was always my passion, but I wanted to go in a medical field when I was in a high school. It didn't work out, so construction was my second choice, but I really enjoyed it. And I grew up doing a great in my math, which helped me in the industry, being a great estimator. I take a pride at my estimating experience and the skills. I call myself estimating guru on a LinkedIn even, you know. And when I came here, it was a tough life. Everywhere I go for interview, they're like, you have no experience in America. In India, we build brick and a block and a mortars and a cement plaster. In America, it's all sheetrock and the metal studs and all that. I'm like, that's fine, I'll learn it. Another challenge was my accent. You know, people like, how are you going to work on a site with your accent? Don't worry about it. If I know how to build something, I can show them, demonstrate it, and make it work. So started my career in construction as a concrete technician who does a slum test, structure steel inspection, soil inspection. It was a great for first 3 years, but I'm like, this is not enough for me. I want to grow somewhere where I can take a pride and I can set a great example to people like me who comes from those countries, or even people come from a medium families, like, you know, how you can raise yourself, like set your goals, as you and I talked about it at the lunch, right? Like you got to set your goals. That's what I heard. Like I'm on a one-way street. I'm going to keep going till I hit the dead wall. And here I am from the concrete technician. Then the biggest break I got in real construction world was a company called McAlpine Construction from Long Island. I would say in 1994, no, 97, sorry. Yeah, 3 years I did in concrete. I came here in 94. I got a job at McAlpine Construction as a site superintendent. And it's like completely different. No estimating, no project manager, site supers. You go out and get dirty, working out in the cold and the rain, building ground up buildings. Like, I'll take the challenge.
Yep.
If you don't challenge yourself, you cannot do it. We don't know our own strength till you
Right.
challenge yourself, right? So I took that challenge and I grew with that company for almost 4 years and became a project manager. And I'm like, all right, this company is not big enough. I want to grow bigger. Then I went to Turner. Turner hired me as an estimator. Was one of my best school. I always say this to people I talk to. When I spent 4 years at Turner, it was more than a high school or a college degree, what I learned from there. Great company. They put you through so many different workshops and challenges. They push you hard, like go, 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 learn it. And it was great experience for 4 years. After 9/11, they asked me to go work on a job site. And I'm like, yeah, I did that for 3 years, Do I still want to continue doing that career out on a job site? I had a young kid back in those days, and I'm like, no, I don't think I want to continue that. So I applied for a job at Structure Tone, and I got hired on my first interview as an estimator.
Wow.
In New Jersey office. And I met a lot of good people. Structure Tone was another great company, I would say, I have worked with. They treated me like a family. And we had a few guys, and I always bring this one guy's name every time I talk to people about success in my life in construction. Son Galvin was my best mentor at Structure Tone, who supported me like, I'm here with you, go get it. And Brian Heffernan, my boss, awesome boss I had. So I spent about 12 years with Structure Tone. It was a great career. I learned a lot dealing with clients, dealing with our own team, dealing with designers. That gave me an exposure, like how you can connect with people and build not only your career, but be a successful for your company also grows with you.
Right.
I made a big impact for Structure Tone working with them. Like there were clients, they're like, as long as Rakesh is an estimator, you guys have a job. That means a lot,
Yeah.
when somebody appreciate your work. And that I always say to people, when somebody do good, appreciate it. If somebody make a mistake, don't talk about that in front of other people. Take them in a room and say, hey, you should have done better,
Right.
But appreciate people in front of others, and it goes a long way. And I got that so many times. I got those at Turner, same thing I got at Structure Tone. So after Structure Tone, I got like, all right, I got to do something different. I have done estimating enough. I want to do something better. Now I've been a super, I've been a project manager, I've been an estimator for so long. Now I have all those qualities in me. Why don't I try something else? In 2012, Moser reached out to me and they wanted to expand the design build capacity here in USA. Moser is a very strong company out in Asia back in those days, and now they are even stronger in North America.
Mm-hmm.
We are doing a lot of key projects in New York City, which we take a pride at it. So I joined Moser in 2012, expanding their design build capacity. I was here for about 3 years. Then I'm like, okay, design build is not a great market in New York back in those days.
I did not know you had already had a stint at Moser before you had come back.
Oh,
then.
yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. So what happened is about 3 years, we had a lot of good projects, but a lot of our global clients, they know what design build is. So we had only those projects in that 3 year of my career here. And it was drying out. I'm like, okay, I want to be in a market where I'm actively connected with people. Let me do something different. Then I got an opportunity to work at WeWork, our ex co-working place, right? That was a great opportunity. I mean, everybody has a different opinion about WeWork. I'm sure you work there, you know how it is.
Absolutely.
And when people ask me, what do you think about WeWork? I think WeWork has given my career a big boost.
Yeah.
The amount of people I got connected after WeWork and during my WeWork career worldwide, not only US. I met people in Asia, I met people in UK, in Mexico, Canada. So that was like eye opener for me, like shit, I cannot be only in New York. I can work anywhere now in the world.
Yep.
Right. And it definitely helped. And a lot of young people, like as you walk around in my office here, out of about 65 people, 12 of them are ex-viewer,
Right, I know.
which is awesome.
It
You
is
know, like
awesome.
they created a lot of good quality people. So it was a successful 4 years for me. Yes, there are a lot of ups and downs. Everything we do and everything we see out there, there are pros and cons. But end of the day, WeWork was a great career for me. After WeWork, they laid off everybody from my department back in 2020, and then things were going down. And Moser reached out to me again. They're like, "Hey, we are doing a lot better than last time you were here. You want to come
Absolutely.
and rejoin us?" I'm like, "Absolutely. I love the company. The great people. Charlton and Raquel here, they run the office now. Awesome people. Every single person in this office I work with, a great company, great people. It's a great culture." Here I am, back to Moser.
Yeah, and it is a great company at Moser, and so are the other companies you worked with. We work Turner,
Yeah.
Structure Tone, really all leaders
Yes,
in
there are
their
great leaders
industries,
out there.
and it's so important. I wanted to stem back to something you were talking about though, about challenging yourself and making mistakes, because especially as an estimator, that's a challenging job on a
It
construction.
is very stressful job. Yeah.
Yeah, and there's a lot of components to a construction project, and especially when you're coming to a foreign land, and even before you were an estimator, you mentioned you were in concrete and stuff like that, but you have to learn so many different aspects of the project cycle, and
Absolutely.
that's what you did. When you first started, you were giving an opportunity, and even though that opportunity was low on the totem pole, you took it upon yourself to learn more
Yeah.
about what was going on there, because you had higher aspirations for yourself. And when you're challenging yourself and you're doing those things and you're making those mistakes, because for a lot of different reasons, I've done projects on other continents too, and there is a level of uncertainty when you do anything overseas, and especially when you're working where you have to excel at a certain level
Yeah.
in order to succeed. It's not very easy. So
Not at all. No.
talk about that a little bit. When you were first starting out, and obviously after telling the listeners, you've clearly hit a level of your career where you're in the upper echelon of positions and whatnot. But when you were starting out like that, and challenging yourself and making those mistakes, tell us about that, and what that was like for you.
Sure. So the biggest challenge when I came here was, one is, as you just said, coming from different country. So the respect I expected was not there, right? Not, I would not use the word color of the skin or anything. It's just like my language wasn't the best, my accent, my English, and same time somebody is like, okay, this guy is telling me to do this, but I've been doing this for so many years. Who are you?
Mhm.
Right? They underestimated my energy and the skills. And I'm like, why do I have to fight to prove myself that I am right here? So those things were there in the beginning, but I have to prove it,
Mhm.
right? It's always like you got to win the trust of the others to trust you,
Yep.
like this guy is doing the right thing. And it took me a while, but when I joined Turner, I think they gave me a great opportunity. There were a lot of support. And in the beginning, it was like, I'm a junior estimator. I don't know estimates. I don't know the number. Of course, I don't know the local number, but I know how to do the takeoff,
Yep.
which is very important. You go through the document and you make a mistake. I have made mistakes in my life. We still make a mistake. But how to come out of those mistakes and share those things, and don't be shy to share your mistake with others so they do not repeat those things.
Right.
So I never felt same about sharing my guilt to people. Like even when it comes to my family or my coworker, like, hey, I made those mistakes in my career. We don't want to repeat that, and that's why I'm sharing with you. So even though there were challenges, like we all have our own pride and ego, like, oh, back in those days, I go from junior to senior estimator. Now, when I hire a junior estimator, my attitude was never to be a senior.
Mhm.
Like we are one team, and
Mhm.
I do the same thing here with my team at Moser. It's funny. Yesterday we were all on an internal call, and I made a fun of somebody's like, "You're a director, and I'm a designer." I'm like, "We are one team. You need a coffee? I'll get up and go make a coffee for
Right.
you." There
Right.
is no such thing as who you are. It's we.
Right.
So that took me a lot to get into those kind of an attitude, how I have to work as a team, rather than saying it's me and me, But that was a challenge coming from the culture where I come from. It's big difference like how my boss treated me back home in India and Africa versus how my boss treated me in America. And I do the same. I learn how to be a good leader. You want to create more leaders. That's how you're going to be a good leader.
Yep, you got to lift them up. And you mentioned too when you were at Turner, that's where you mentioned your mentors there, right? That was there.
So the Turner, I had few mentors, but Structure Tone was my best mentor place.
Okay.
Son Galvin, I mentioned the name, in
Yeah.
New Jersey. I'll share a couple of those stories if you don't mind.
Absolutely.
At Structure Tone, when I joined after 9/11, I left Turner and I joined Structure Tone. And the day I got started, they dropped me documents and said, "Here, it's a $30 million project in Jersey City." It was a trading floor, and I never did trading floor budgets in my life before. I go do it. And this guy Son, like, don't worry, do your best. I'll support you. And he mentored me, he supported me, he was always there, connected me with the right people who can help me on that project. And I was very successful. It was about 6 month process on a pre-con and 6 months in a construction. But that 1 year gave me a great confidence in myself that I can do anything when it comes to construction and a budget.
Right, because he created those lanes for you.
Yeah.
Right, and that's the thing. And you mentioned as far as leaders go, that's what they do. They create lanes for others to succeed.
Exactly.
Yeah, and that's so important. And that's how it happens. And there's a bit of luck, but luck takes place when you work hard and open up those opportunities for you by obviously making yourself vulnerable and asking for help. That's that's one of the hardest things I think young people have a hard time overcoming. Is just
100%
they think that they can't ask for help when really in reality there's so many people out there who want to help and want them to succeed and stuff like that. And they think because they don't know maybe something that they should know. We've all been there, and that's the thing. We've all made those mistakes.
Yeah, ask a question. There's always a help there. Yeah.
Right. So then I wanted to talk about WeWork because you did mention, we were both there at the same time. You got there far before me. You were there in what you say, 2015?
I joined in 2016.
16? Yeah. I got there in 18. So, you kind of saw the evolution of it from an earlier vantage point than me. By the time I got there, WeWork was a relatively well-known name.
Yeah.
But you mentioned it too, like the way that, Turner and Structure Tone were great educators for you and you felt like was the best education for you. Mm-hmm. That's a lot what WeWork was for me because it was so crazy and hectic and we were moving so fast. Mm-hmm. You had to solve a lot of those problems and make mistakes and learn from them very quickly. And, as far as my expertise goes in logistics and, furniture installation and moving and stuff like that, warehousing, I knew that and I could do that well, but I also had to learn about construction and about IT and security and design and stuff like that. What was it like for you when you got there? Up to that point in your career, you had really established yourself. What did WeWork do for you in terms of, helping take you to the next level like it did for me?
So the one thing WeWork did for me, which was really good for my career, was they gave me trust and a power. They're like, okay, we've been spending, I remember 1 week after I joined WeWork, Adam Newman asked me to join him in his office with my boss, Dave Fano. And he says the first thing, like, these people around us are spending a lot of my money. I hire you to bring our budget down by 30 to 40%. I'm like, all right, Adam, I hear you. And well noted. Let me go back and do my work. So, of course, I didn't do it myself. I had a great team of young people. And I always say this to people, WeWork made me younger than I am, When I joined WeWork, I feel like, oh my God, everywhere I turn my head, I see kids around me. But they were all my mentor. And that's one thing. It took me about 6 to 8 months to digest it. Like, I'm going to learn from there. Because coming from a construction for X amount of year experience, that ego, working for Turner and Structure Tone. But I'm like, no, these kids are smarter than me. Let me learn from them, right? And I took an advantage of that attitude and work with all these people in technology. how to pull things out of the rabbit, how to create the supply chain thing,
Right.
right? And all of them supported me. They're like, God, we love you. Let's work together. And we made a big dent on the budget. When I joined in 2016, I say in New York, we used to build non-union buildings around 240, 250 a square feet. When I left WeWork, it was around 160 a
That's
square feet.
incredible. That is a
And
ton of cost
again,
savings.
I always say it's not only me, it's the team
Right.
I work with. We made it happen together.
Yep.
And it was awesome. I take a pride at it, as a team. But that's a great story. I always like tell people about WeWork. Like if they did not give me that power and they trust me, I could not have done it. And then they made me as a global head of estimating, which was even better. Now I can talk to people in India, in Shanghai. Actually, Moser did a project for me when I was at WeWork.
Right.
I was their client.
Yeah.
So my current boss in Vancouver, I used to be his client. Now he's my boss.
Yeah. But again,
yeah.
that's opening up the network too. And that's the thing about WeWork that I always say is the people there is what really made it, and especially in the development division department, it was hard. They were hard projects with short timelines.
Yeah. When I joined in 2016, I think we were about 600 people.
Yeah.
And when you joined, there were probably 12,000 people.
Yeah, I was going to say
right?
somewhere around there.
So in the beginning, it was very hard, right? And people had challenges opening buildings in a time because there are people lined up to get in a building. Of
course, we were filling the seats.
Those were one of the biggest challenge, right? They always made their deadline. Construction in New York, none of the projects ever open on time, right? Always week delay, 2 week, month delay. But those were the challenges. Like we have deadlines to meet, we have capex to meet, and if the budget goes up, our boss is like, "I'm not signing this. Make it happen." Right? So there were so many of those challenges, and same time not having enough people. They were like growing so crazy, very fast grown company back in those days. I remember my boss Granite at the time saying, "Let's pick up all the diamonds from the street and bring them in. We'll figure out what to do with them." I'm like, I will pick rough diamonds and polish them, Let's pick all the rough diamonds and support them how we can help them grow.
Yep, exactly. And again, so many people, because they were so confident in themselves, and again, mistakes were happening. It was just part of the job. And as fast as people were moving and, the burnout and stuff like that. However, when the mistakes did happen, nobody was pointing fingers. No. It was a lot of, okay, it happened. Let's figure it out and let's get it done. Yeah. And that was the most important thing. And, there wasn't a level of, animosity or frustration among people. It was, okay, we're all talented. We're a team. We're going to work on this together and figured it out. And that's what I really liked about WeWork and the people there. Yeah. It made the job.
I think you brought a good point. I remember, I don't know if you were in one of our summit in LA.
Yeah.
So
that was the last one. Yeah.
And somebody on a stage been asked a question, what is that you miss at WeWork that you do not have to worry about? It's like, I never get stressed out here.
Yeah.
The vibes, the energy around people do not even have time to get stressed.
Right.
And I experienced the same thing.
Right. And you give, you bring up the diamond analogy. Pressure is what makes diamonds, and like, that's the thing is, it was high intensity, high pressure project timelines.
You, right? I remember your story when we were talking about lunch, like between 2018 and 2022 yourself, like you had all those high goals, and here you are doing great in your career, doing the podcast and so many other things, right? And we are working together on projects. What else you can expect? And it's like a non-stop thing. It's in your control.
Exactly. And that's the thing. And it's a periodic growth. It like we were talking about, it takes time. And what I've done myself is balance, the mindset between continuing to stay disciplined in my pursuit, but also remaining patient in my pursuit. And it's a balance of those two things. And, never getting discouraged, but also never getting lazy and never getting complacent, and just continue to go. So, you can see why too, after WeWork, Moser made so much more sense to you at this point, because at that point, when you were leaving WeWork, Moser being one of the largest design build companies in the world and doing so much, great and interesting work all over the globe, becoming the director of construction here really allowed you to kind of flaunt all of the skills that you had developed over the last, 25, 30 years. So tell us about what you're working on here and, some of the projects and how you're so
Absolutely.
involved in everything going on.
Yeah. So the one thing really I put myself in a place like when they reach out to me again to come back. Every time you talk about construction and a design, there are so many different disciplines. When you talk about designing, you have designers, then you have estimators
Mhm.
and the supers to build the job, project managers manage the job, and somebody is connected with the client. I've been through all these different roles in my career. So I'm like, this is a great opportunity. And M. Moser is a unique company, even though we are design build company outside US, it's like 95% of our projects are design build. In North America, we do about 30% design build, 70% design. But working with M. Moser gave me an opportunity, same time, to work with the design team, work with our technical, work with our architects, engineers, and globally, this is a global company. So if I need a help, our entire global team is there. Pick up like this morning, I was speaking with somebody in Singapore. Yesterday, I was talking to somebody in India. So we have all those resources. So we are unique the way we are. Like sometimes people ask me, who is your competition? We have no
Right.
competition. We are who we are. Our global client is our biggest market, but same time, currently we are doing two key project in New York as a design build, one in a one Vanderbilt, one in a 50 Hudson Yard. Beautiful project, and none of them are our global client. One of them is a technology driven company. They do all the different softwares and automated system. I'm not going to mention the name for confidentiality, but deliver a great project uh, on a 64th floor. And the best thing out of that, I can say, how our team worked together.
Right.
We had 6 people in one room in every meeting. So we don't have to say like, oh, let me go back to Rakesh and talk about this, or let me go my designer and talk. We are all there. Fully integrated service. We call it IPD, right? So does everybody else do? I don't know who else, what else they do in a design build. I have worked with another design firm for a few months in the past, but was not like M. Moser.
Right.
The best thing I get out of also at M. Moser, the attitude,
Hmm.
the corporate mentality, how they treat you as a family.
Right.
We are corporate, but we are not corporate. Our headquarters is in Hong Kong, but I can pick up the phone and talk to Moira, who is the founder of the company 48 years ago, right? So that's how this company is. When I work at Structure Tone, it was different. It's a different corporate, and Turner is a whole different corporate, right?
Right.
But again, I'm not saying they are real corporate and I don't like. I love them all. Without them, I could not have been here. So coming back to Moser, on a design build, the way our team work together is my expertise in a construction. Designers has a great vision what to design and how it should look like, but not that everybody who design they know how this thing will be built.
Right.
So me and our construction team, I have people who work with me. We work together like how can we build this? How can we build it better? How can we build it to the best value to client expectations? There are so many different varieties. Learning the client, what their budget is, which is the biggest key. I always say this to people: you got to learn what your client want to spend.
Yep.
You cannot design what you want and then
Right.
say, "Hey, Mr. Client, here is $1,000 per square feet project." You have to learn that thing and design to the budget what the client gave you day one. And that happens at M. Moser. Our team is not stubborn. Like they're like, okay, if the client want to spend X amount of dollar, we'll still make it a beautiful project for that budget.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And, that's what you mentioned too, as far as the teamwork and the camaraderie here. But when you get to do a design build project, especially in New York, it's a challenge.
It
And,
is.
and that's what I'm talking about too, as far as, flexing your muscle and doing what you have to do to prove that you can handle these projects. And it's opposite for me. So you mentioned, M. Mosier does a lot of their projects around the globe, and about, 90% of your projects are global, and then 10% design build
Uh-huh.
speaking are domestic. With what I do at the advanced group, about 90% of what I do is domestic as far as servicing my clients
Okay.
nationally. But there are 10% where I get to do international projects
Okay.
for, and that's where I get to flex my muscles because, like you mentioned, speaking to clients in India and Singapore, I do the same thing. And, as that consultant who has done global projects already in his past, I know how to manage those and communicate those and do what's necessary in order to succeed. And why I love working with a company like Moser is because you guys specialize in that design build process. So, your process is a long process, right? It can be anywhere from, 20 to 50 weeks, a whole year. With what we do, we are a key aspect from the time substantial completion happens all the way through opening and punch list, which is about a month to 2 month period. But it's like the bow on top, and that's where I flex. That's where I succeed because I love the challenge of finishing that project off. And quite frankly, if those moves in furniture installation and IT installations don't go well, it puts a sour taste in everybody's mouth. And I love that pressure. Because I know I can do it.
And it's a critical path of the job, too,
Right.
right? You got to get the client, like we can deliver the project, but the movers and the furnitures and all those things are not in line, then client cannot move in and they're not happy.
Exactly. And it all falls apart. And that's why. And every time I've worked with Moser so far, the projects have done great. We've done a couple projects here in New York and then others outside. And one client, just wrote back the other day, it was in Pittsburgh, how happy she was with everything. And again, they changed a ton of things and changed dates and just scope and all of these things.
Always happen.
It does. It always happens. But that's why communication is so important. Whether verbal or, over emails and whatever it may be, with having so many parties involved, it's so important to make sure, for me personally, that I'm on top of, everybody and making sure everybody's on the same page, in agreement. So when our crews arrive, they know what's going on. And there's no, he said, she said type stuff, and it gets done the way it needs to. And it doesn't matter if it's in Pittsburgh or if it's in, India or Singapore.
I think it's very important also, right? Like managing the client and a client expectation. It's a big challenge, right? But if you are not muscled enough to manage that and work with that, you're not going to be successful.
No.
Every client I have worked, there's always some different challenges. I cannot even name one project that I had no issues in my career, right? And I have done more than 100, maybe more than 1,000 projects in my career. Every project has a different challenge, and we learn from those, and it helps you get stronger and stronger on our next delivery. But every component on the project, like as you say, we spend 20, 30, 50 weeks. We get involved from the day one. Like it's normal practice in New York, it's about a year before they move in. We start with the client, like looking for the building, helping them on finding a right building, right location, then go in a design, budget, capex, series, bidding, and all that.
Of course.
It's about 1 year process. Now, in that 1 year, if you're not learning your client and managing their expectations, something is missing.
Absolutely. Because it's gonna bubble on you essentially.
Exactly. So it's the best practice to have that client connection and learn who your clients are and put the right people in front of them. And that's the one thing Moser does is greatly. We have so many people here, been here forever, and they always stay connected with the client. And that's what I tell people: stay connected with people. Build your network. You finish the job doesn't mean you are done. Stop by after a couple months.
Right, absolutely.
Hey, how is everything?
Absolutely. Get that FaceTime,
and that
shake
client
hands.
will never forget that.
Absolutely.
Like these guys care about our building.
Right. Right. And what you can do too is you learn a lot from being on site. That's what I find on my projects too. We had a client the other day. I'm working with them out of New Jersey, and we are doing a furniture disassembly, putting it in storage, and then shipping it to their DC office. And we learned while we were on site there that when we're disassembling the furniture, we can keep the spines aligned, so we don't need to disassemble all of the spines that put the desk together. What that does is save a ton of time and a ton of money. So when I can call my client and say, hey, listen, I was on site today, I saw everything we're doing, we were able to make sure that these spines didn't have to get disassembled. It's also easier for us from an inventory standpoint.
Saves you labor too.
Exactly. So then when we deliver these to DC, I tell them all we got to do is just make sure that the loading dock and elevator allow for these spines to go in. They're about like 10 by 6 or something like that. We just got to make sure the elevator will allow it, and we'll save ourselves a ton of time on the back end. And that's that level of consulting and professional knowledge that goes so far to your clients. And I wouldn't have known that if I just didn't do the little extra of going on site and, you know, doing those small things.
Yeah. And you brought up a good point, going on a site. I remember being an estimator. I used to say this to people when I was a structure tone, that go visit the site. So you learn what you estimated from the drawing,
exactly,
how it's being built. All you're going to gain out of it and benefit is you. It's going to benefit you that now in the future, like if you become a project manager, you know how to build the things you can estimate too.
Right.
It's very important to site visit and say when you see something, talk about it like, hey, this doesn't look right. You know, let's talk to the designer, talk to the contractor, and make it fix before it get too far.
Right.
So being an estimator, I always love enjoying the site visits and all that, talking with the contractors, talking with the designers, you know, engineers. It adds a lot of knowledge to you.
Exactly. And the reason why too, for you, it's ingrained in you from your start. We already talked about it. You know, you were doing that from day one, where you were getting to know every level of the project. I was doing the same thing when I was young. You know, I wanted to know, because that's the thing with me, is I could always, different from you too. You know, you had a hard time articulating and talking, not that you had a hard time, but people had a hard time understanding you. I could always talk the talk, you know, that's why I got the podcast.
Oh, you're doing a great job.
But, you know, I wanted to walk the walk too, and make sure that my, you know, what I was saying was backed up by knowledge and understanding. And I did that throughout my career and stuff like that. I'm going to end it real quick. And I want to talk about this too. What's it been like for you in New York? You know, what's your New York experience been like? Because I think it's important that, you know, people understand and hear that too. You could have wound up anywhere, you know, and the fact that you wound up in New York, what's that been like for you?
New York has given me a great career, friends like you, great vibes and the energy, what I see here in New York. I left, actually, I worked in New York. I left New York, went to work for Structure Tone in New Jersey office. After 12 years, I'm missing something.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want to just drive to the office for an hour driving and then come home straight. Coming to New York here, like 4 o'clock. Hey, Jack, what you doing? Let's grab a drink or let's grab a lunch. I missed that in New Jersey. So, and it's, of course, it's not about drink and lunch, but the people. And I'm a people believer person.
Yeah.
You got to stay connected with people. When people start forgetting you, I think you are losing.
Right.
That's how I believe. I tell all my young coworkers, work is very important, but same time you got to get out and treat yourself.
Right.
And meet people.
Make it fun for you.
Right. Let people know who you are. If people don't know who you are, no matter how good you do behind that computer all day, nobody will know who did that. So I'm a big believer, and I enjoy New York. Like I miss New York if I will leave New York ever, you know?
Yeah.
Which I don't know what my next episode will be, but I hate the weather, of course, when it comes to winter. For after last couple years, up until last 2 years, I was always fine.
Right.
But now this cold bothers me.
Well, yeah, you got your daughter in Florida too, so you see her.
Yeah, my daughter lives in Florida. She always tell me, Dad, move here. I'm like, yeah, but again, if I move to Florida, I'm going to miss all this in New York. So, you know, like you want to live in hot weather, or you live with people like you and all the rest.
You could snowbird it. We'll figure it out.
Yeah.
But Rakesh, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
You know, this was great. I'm so glad we got to make it happen, and we'll definitely do it again soon.
Thank you so much for this opportunity, and thank you, Sam, and for this, you know, appreciate it, coming to my office and, you know, taking care of this.
No, it's our pleasure. It was a great episode. I think people are going to love it. So everybody, thank you for listening, and we'll see you again soon.
Thank you.